Okay, so we are going to have Benny Torres come to the stage next, and yeah, that's how a lot of people feel about Benny. Tina, is that you? I can't really, I knew that was you, Tina. I could just feel it. I knew that was Tina. I love you, Tina. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah, Benny is very beloved, I just feel like in general, but in the storytelling community, for sure. Benny, I know you can hear me, and you're fine, buddy. I'm so sorry that I'm speaking of you so positively. He's spent almost 2 years in Gainesville thus far, so we've got hope for a lot more. Engaged in the intersections of storytelling, comedy, teaching, entrepreneurialism, and delicious baked goods. Interpret as you will, as I did. He is currently a lecturer in advertising at UF, and Benny worked as a copywriter and strategist working on Nintendo. He has a great story about that, by the way, Sprite and Always. It's quite the variety, right? If you have an improvisational mind, as I do, put all those three things together, but I'm not going to share any of my thoughts. You just kind of do that in your own mind and tell me after the show if you have. He's lived in a tent for 50 days in Hawaii, and he cannot whistle. So, here's Benny. Please welcome him. Tina.
She's so tall. Or I'm short, that's what it is. So, I'm in a hut at 18,000 feet at the end of 2011. 2011 was a big, big year for me. Came out of the closet. Woo! Yeah, big old scary thing. Came out of the closet. I think I ran my maybe fourth marathon. And that came with getting under 180 pounds. Just so you're aware, I was 200 pounds at 13 and 270 pounds at my largest. And I also doubled my salary and decided to celebrate by quitting my job and moving to the West Coast. And so I'm in a hut at 18,000 feet. Just so you understand, 18,000 feet. A helicopter, max 10,000. A Cessna, max around 19,000. It ends up being about 3.5 miles up. I'm in a hut at 18,000 feet, and I'm thinking about my travel partner, Alan, who's sleeping right next to me. Why Alan? I ask that all the time. Alan is that friend who you've known for years, maybe even decades, that you don't know why you're still friends. Why are and I remember no, see, like, God, and I remember talking to, some of my best friends, and we've all been friends with Alan for a long time. We were having this conversation without Alan, and like, why are we friends with this guy? He's just a jerk. Alan is just a jerk. Okay, so here, I'll give a couple stories about Alan. Number one, as we're talking about where I'm at, which is somebody in Kilimanjaro, and Alan is my chosen travel partner, kind of. I'm telling all my friends in a joke, nudge sort of way, like, hey guys, if I don't make it back, it was Alan. It was Alan. He did something. And then Alan laughs a little too hard. And then Alan walks away, and I look at them a little bit more seriously. I'm like, no. Like, if I do not come back, it was Alan. And so as we talked about Alan and why Alan is still our friend after all these years, we figured it out, and it's because Alan is always, what the kids say, down. Alan is always ready to go. Alan's always there. He's a jerk a lot of times, but Alan's just always there. He's always, yeah, you want to go here, you want to go there. So in 2011, when I sort of decided to pre-tire, which was my term for like, why do I have to wait until I'm 65 to like go do things? Let me go do things now and just hope that I have a job when I get back. I posted it to Facebook, and I just kind of said, hey, I have all this time, anybody want to join me doing something adventurous? Alan was the first one to be like, yeah. Apparently Alan or I knew this, Alan had stomach cancer and had recovered. And one of the ways that he coped was by writing itineraries. So as he was recovering, he was writing itineraries for future travels. And he actually gave me an option. He was like, do you want to go to Galapagos or Kilimanjaro? I was like, I don't know, Kilimanjaro, sure. And we were off to the races. So I'm at 18,000 feet at Kibo Hut on Kilimanjaro, and I'm thinking about Alan. One of the things Alan, as a jerk, he was the one who made me realize why I felt so guilty when I told people, or felt so sort of cringy when I told people that I'd ran marathons. It's a very strange thing running marathons, because you say, I ran a marathon, and people are like, oh my God, you're great, you're wonderful. Terrible people run marathons all the time, right? Like, it's not, and people are like, oh my God, wow, you're amazing. And it's like, you don't know that. I just ran 26 miles, that's all I did. And Alan was the first person to articulate this. Alan goes to me, I'm having conversations and I'm running my 4th marathon or whatever, and I'm telling my friends, and Alan's like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, so you're telling me you're going to shut down a whole city. You're telling me you're going to waste my morning. You're telling me you're going to start somewhere and then stop somewhere and just stop in the same place. You're just going to do it for 5 hours. You're telling me you wasted hours upon hours upon hours of your life training for this, and you're not even like doing it for charity? Like, running a marathon is the most stupid, indulgent thing I've ever heard of. And he like freed me in a weird way. I was like, yes, you're the one you get it. You understand it. It's 2011, 18,000 feet, Kibo Hut, and I'm thinking about indulgence. What is indulgent? Running a marathon is indulgent. Hiking Kilimanjaro is very, very indulgent. I was not aware how indulgent it was until I was in East Africa, Kenya and Tanzania. Indulgent like the government mandates for every one person who hikes up Kilimanjaro, 5 porters have to join them. This means that as a team of 2, we have 10 Tanzanians taking up all our stuff. Climbing Kilimanjaro is indulgent like safari-style dinners. I was fully prepared on this 7-day journey to eat Cliff Bars and poop bricks. And on our first meal, a tablecloth and silverware out of a tent that 10 porters were sleeping in, and somehow made some of the best vegetarian food I've ever had in my life. And when we demurred and said, this is too much, silverware, literal silverware on the mountain of Kilimanjaro, and we're like, this is too much. Like, no, you need energy. 5 courses, including once squash soup made in a squash bowl that had our names and the date on it. Indulgent. Indulgent like online. If you go and check to see how much this will cost, it'll run you anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500, maybe $4,000. Indulgent like Alan, God bless him, that jerk, me feeling all my white guilt, which I didn't even know I had white guilt until I went to Africa, but I had a lot of white guilt because, whoa, there's a lot of poor people and you can't do anything about it. And it's like, I don't know what to do about this. And I know it was kind of my fault, but not really, I'm not sure. Right? And also like the look in people's eyes, Kenyans and Tanzanians, when you're like, I'm climbing Kilimanjaro, and they're like, why would you do that? Like, that's such a way, I live at the base of this mountain. Why would you go up there and just to come back down? Indulgent like Alan, negotiating for our 10 porters and 5 courses and, safety and camaraderie and us not having to carry bags whatsoever. Negotiating it from 3,000 to 1,000, back up to 1,500, and the negotiation including, I'm just silent, feeling my guilt. The negotiation including, well, okay, instead of 6 days, we want 7 days, and we want 2 hotel rooms, and we want a ferry, and we want food tonight, and we want this, and we want that. And Alan's just an experienced traveler and sort of knows the third world, and the guy's like, I can do 1,250. Deal. Indulgent. So Alan made me realize that marathons were indulgent, and Kilimanjaro made me realize that we were both on an indulgent ship. But not all indulgences are bad. I'm at 18,000 feet the night before the summit attempt, and I'm thinking about the good indulgence the night before. It's the first night we spend above the cloud line, and you end up walking like 26 miles in a day, so you're pretty exhausted, but a very like deep exhaustion, not like a superficial, like I'm so tired, like just like I've been walking 26 miles up a mountain exhaustion. And you have to drink a lot of water. You got like, that's the one way they tell you to sort of deal with altitude sickness and all that kind of stuff. So I'm drinking a lot of water. And so inevitably I wake up from my, nightly 2 a.m., 3 a.m. pee. And in the daytime, above the cloud lines looks like Star Wars. And eerie in a wonderful way, but eerie in the way that nobody's been up here for a very long time, or not lots of people have been up here. So I'm seeing like rock formations that like have like 1995 on them. I'm like, that's almost 11 years ago. Like nobody's touched this. Okay, go to sleep, wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning. Indulgence, like I wake up and my glasses are off, which I'm completely blind, but even in my blindness, I'm taken aback, because indulgent, like we happen to be climbing Kilimanjaro during a full moon. Indulgent, like the cloud tops looking like a magical fluorescent carpet just rolling peacefully. Indulgent, like just quiet, just so quiet and still. Indulgent, like the moon as bright as these lights, but shining on the ice crystals of the ground, and like diamonds glittering in the stillness, and then matching the diamonds up above. I'd never seen inky blackness, this inky black, or stars the way that they are supposed to be seen. And Alan, that jerk, is sleeping, and I'm so excited, and I'm so in awe, and I'm so humbled, and I'm so like, what did I even do, and how do we exist here? What is happening? I'm at least a demigod or something. Like, what is happening? And I kind of like poke him a little bit inside, and I'm like, Alan, you have to see this. This is literally the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm like almost driven to tears, and Alan sort of grumpily like pokes his head on his old, yeah, stars and the moon, great, good night. And so I'm actually happy he did it, because I just sat outside in the freezing cold at 18,000 feet and just was still and just like tried my best to honor the moon and the stars and the glowing carpet and just how impossible. What did I do to deserve this? I'm at 18,000 feet in Kibo Hut, in a cold, cold hut, and I'm thinking about death. I'm thinking about death for a number of reasons. I'm thinking about death because I had just gotten my final group of emails before we hiked up the mountain, and it turned out that the next day, when I'm going to be summiting Kilimanjaro, my mom is going into surgery for an emergency hysterectomy. I'm thinking about death because around this time period, as fate would have it, I figure out that I have a fear of heights. It's just a fear of heights in the opposite way. I'm deathly afraid of falling down slopes. I know, right? Yeah, I don't care about going up. Up, I'm fine. But for whatever reason, seeing a slope that's more than this and going down it, I can just visualize myself tumbling head over foot with no recourse. I don't know if that's how bodies work, but that's what I imagine. And so a little dramatically, but also not, surrounded, by the way, by this bunk bed, which is freezing cold. Literally, it's a hut made out of concrete at 18,000 feet, and literally every surface is cold. Like that game, Don't Touch the Floor because it's hot lava. Exactly the same thing, but literally cold, and you could we were doing that. And I'm surrounded by etchings and markers of the people who came before me, 1995, 1997, 2011, 2010, all these names, all these countries, and I'm thinking about my impending death or my potential death, and a little dramatically, but with a little flair, a little honoring sort of the surrealness of this moment, I take my camera and I sort of say my last words. I say, hey, if I don't make it, whatever. We're due to start the summit attempt at 11 p.m. You do that apparently because if you're up there when the sun comes out and like as the sun gets higher and higher, you get burnt. Like you get burnt. That's how high you are and that's how white it is and that's how like reflective it is and whatever. So I try my best to go to sleep and I wake up-ish and it's time. It's time to attempt this summit. One thing I failed to mention, the other reason I'm deathly afraid is because to acclimate, you have to climb up the precipice, and the precipice is very silty, a lot of switchbacks. It's the only part of the mountain that actually is technical at all. Everything else is just a walk. And I did not do well. I was slipping, I was falling, I was cold. I was all the things that I was worried about were happening in that first trial. And then I'm doing it at night. So we wake up, put on our gear, ready to go. And I know that it's going to be 6-7 hours. I do not have sleep. I am freezing cold. These are 2 recipes for monstrous Benny, just monstrous Benny. And so as we begin this journey, I'm behind Alan. Alan is going much slower than me. And they tell us, I'm terrible. I don't know what language it is, but they tell us slow in the language is pole pole. And they just keep on telling us pole 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 pole, slow to maximize your chances of actually reaching the summit. And I am angry. I have my headphones in and my iPod in, listening to Glee or something. And I am livid. I'm behind this stupid freaking jerk of a guy who came with me. We're going super slow. I have 6 hours of freezing cold walking. I am climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. We do not have to use headlamps because the moon is that full and that bright. If I turn around, I can literally see both Tanzania and Kenya in the lights. And I am angry. I am just, and luckily it was 6 hours, so I had time to get the heck over myself. And it's funny, in that moment, I had to talk myself out of it. I had to go, yo, you are climbing Mount Kilimanjaro right now. Why are you so angry? Deal with what's happening right now. And we're just trudging up the silt. I'm so angry that I'm not noticing that Alan is getting slower and slower and slower and slower. And it's not until we have to stop in an ice cave, because that's what's up there, ice caves with like beautiful crystal clear icicles that you can see through and like drink water off of because there's nothing else up there. What's it going to be? Poison? No, it's water. And we stop at the ice cave and I'm realizing that Alan's having a real tough time. Alan, who was so cocky, Alan, who was like, are you climbing stairs with a gas mask on? Because that's what it takes. I'm like, Alan is having a rough go of it. And so we're taking it even slower. And finally, there's a point at around 18,500 feet called Gilliman's Point. Gilliman's Point is sort of the do or die arena. They tell us, and I tried to look up numbers for this. Apparently, Tanzania is not that great at record keeping. But they told us at the time that something like only 1 in 10 make it past Gilliman's Point for whatever reason. It's the precipice, and then you're kind of going out. And when we get to this point, it opens up all of a sudden. You've been going up and up and up and up, and you're just kind of staring at silt. And then at a certain point, it opens up. And once it starts opening up, Alan starts celebrating. He's a little bit delirious. Alan starts celebrating. We did it. Come over here, you big homo. We did it. Now, Alan's been doing this the whole freaking trip. To be clear, East Africa is so homophobic that when we even reference gay people, they're like, no, that doesn't exist here. And I'm in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure it exists here. and our guides literally laugh like it's like cartoon, like, oh, the myth of those homosexuals that you have in America, right? And Alan is like trying to hold my hand. Alan is like kissing my cheek, but then like Alan is playing around with me this whole time. And his final little play, even though he's exhausted and struggling, his final little play is, "Come over here, you big homo," in front of our porters. So I decided to get a little delightful revenge on Alan, because I am not hallucinating, I am coherent. And I give him a big hug, I celebrate a little bit with him. I'm like, "Alan, yeah, we made it to Gilliman's Point. You see that long, far away dot over there? About like 4 hours walk? That's where we're going." And Alan just, I'm very proud of Alan in hindsight. This is the first time I've told this story, but like he was struggling. We had an 8-hour climb, and he was struggling from hour 1. And it was only getting worse. And by the time we got to Gilliman's Point, he's celebrating as if he's finished a marathon, and I get to tell him, we're not even halfway there. And so Alan says nothing to me. Alan doesn't even complain. Alan just puts his hoodie on, starts walking, slowly but surely, hobbling. So, as best as I can describe this visual, we're at the precipice. It feels like Lord of the Rings. There's a far off little dot at the very, very end that we can barely see, that the guides assure me is the summit. And then there's this narrow white path, right? And here's Benny afraid of falling down slopes. There's this narrow white path and just steep falls on either side. And it's at this moment, up to this point, it feels a little touristy, it feels a little Epcot-y, it feels a little surreal, whatever. But it's at this moment on this narrow white path that I'm realizing, oh, there are no guardrails. And there is no real national park. And I am up here. Okay. And so we walk down this white path, and I really need to take you here. We're walking down this white path of snow, freshly driven snow. Nobody's touched it. And it's just sheer darkness on either side, all the way down. And the moon is on my right, full, huge, constant companion, almost too bright to look at. And the moon's moving, the moon's moving, the moon's moving, the moon's moving. And we're walking. And slowly, on the left, it gets a little bit lighter. Kind of like a reverse fire, that like really dark, deep red of like a fire just ending. And it's not making sense. And I start seeing almost like wisps of flame, reds, deep oranges. And then I look over here, darkness, inky black darkness, beautiful big moon, purples and greens and just crazy colors coming up. And it felt like what maybe the first sunrise must have felt like. It felt like godlike. It felt primordial. It felt like seeing the day before anybody else could see it, seeing what the very beginning of a day looked like. And it just kept on. It was unrelenting, and it got brighter and brighter and more colors, and we're trudging, and it's just, and I felt like I was at the center of the world, and everything was just shifting around me, is what it felt like. And we're walking, and Alan's struggling even more, and I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even thankful anymore. I'm starting to become free, and I'm starting to not become scared anymore. And I'm realizing, like, I don't have to stick with these guys, or I can do something different. And so what I start doing is I start playing a game of cat and mouse with the porters and Alan. And so what I'd do is, it was very, very cold, still very cold. I'd sort of sprint maybe 100, 200 feet ahead of them, find a rock to sort of like hide against so that the wind wouldn't hit me, so I could stay a little bit warm. And I brought my camera. The camera hadn't really worked the whole trip, but for whatever reason, every shot I took on this trip, every shot I took on this summit was just boom, 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 capturing it. And so I just decide, okay, I'm with this. I'm doing this. And so every time I sort of cat and mouse them, I would pivot against a rock and take another picture. Glacier, first sunlight, summit, just bam, bam, bam. And my favorite picture, at a certain point, I sort of am against a rock and I'm looking back and I'm far enough ahead that Alan and the porters are pretty tiny and the sun's just about to peek over that horizon. Alan is, and the porters are sort of supporting him and they're walking down the path. Perfect. 3 tiny figures against just this impossibly surreal splash of color and beauty and astoundingness. And then we see it. We see the signs. We see the summit. Alan at this point is so exhausted that I try to have that moment. I feel bad about the thing that I did to him at Gilliman. So I'm like, Alan, it's real this time. There they are, expecting him to. He can't. He can't even muster the adrenaline to get excited that we're here. We did it. We're going to make it. And so, I don't have my moment of glory with him quite yet, and something occurs to me. Now, what you got to remember about this point is that even though I've run 3 marathons, 4 marathons at this point, even though I've lost 100 pounds, you don't stop being a fat kid. And fat kids aren't athletes. So, an idea strikes me. Even on the summit of Kilimanjaro, I'm still not an athlete. And I look at the porters, and I see Alan struggling, and I see how much distance there is between me and the signs. And I look at one of the porters, and I go, I'll race you. And he looks at me like I'm an insane white man, because I am. And he goes, yeah, go ahead. I'm not going to follow you, but go ahead. And fat kid Benny sprints with energy to spare, almost skips, in the most homosexual way, to the summit. I sprinted to that summit, passing angry German tourists. I was the exception. They were all struggling. They were all victims of altitude sickness. They were all, for whatever reason, I can't deny this anymore. And so I get there a little early. The summit's a little bit, to be completely honest, anticlimactic. It's a big garish green sign, and it's beautiful, but sunlight's already happening. And so I had brought some small artifacts with me. They tell you not to leave things up there because it's not, things don't go away. I still brought a little slice of a card that my grandfather had given me. He had passed, so I sort of had that little slice and just dug a little tiny hole and just. I had some roses from my grandmother's funeral because I wanted some Puerto Ricans and some Cubans up there. I mean that genuinely. I was wearing a monkey hat, a little monkey hat. I had a Tebow jersey, so I photographed with a Tebow jersey. And we were just like that. It was over. We were on the way back down. Alan he had a whole other way down. And for whatever reason, no more fear. I mean, a little bit fear, but no more fear. And so we start making our way down, just as beautiful in the daylight, but, we'd seen it a little bit. And then we come to Gilliman's Point and the precipice on the way down. And all of a sudden, the fear kind of comes back to me. It's steep. And it's not only steep, it's silt. It's loose dirt. It's slippery. And the more experienced porter was back with Alan, supporting him. He was, I still don't know how he made it down, genuinely. It was bad. I got the stoner porter. He was literally smoking J's the whole time up and the whole way down. And which I'm fine with. And he looks at me and he goes, Mr. Benny, you're a rookie. I'll take the shortcut. You take the switchbacks. There were switchbacks. That's how steep it was. I'm a god. I just summited Mount Kilimanjaro. I'm not taking switchbacks. I'm taking your shortcut. Let's do this. And says, are you sure? Okay. So he takes his backpack, leans back, puts his fingers here, and literally just starts bounding down the mountain. Bounding down the mountain. I don't even have time to be scared. I'm just like, okay. And so I just start following his exact footsteps. And I realize over the course of an hour or so of like silt skiing that the only risk here is breaking your ankle on a rock, and I could deal with that. I'm a god. And the most fun, the thing I was most scared of, the thing I was most terrified of, the thing I was worried about flipping down, just letting go, releasing, surrendering, and just bounding down this mountain, plumes of dust coming up. Him and I are laughing, we're stopping, we're laughing, we're racing, we're laughing, we're stopping, we're laughing, we're looking up. Alan's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We're bounding, we're laughing, we're bounding. And we get to the bottom. And there's a cup of orange juice for me, and they're all celebrating, and eventually Alan makes it down, and it's wonderful. We made it down. We made it down the summit. We didn't die. And what's weird about Kilimanjaro, from the summit attempt at least, is that you sleep until 11 p.m., you go up the mountain, come back down. You're back down by like 9 a.m. So you sleep for like 3 or 4 hours, but at that 15,000, 18,000 feet, you do not have enough oxygen to recover. So they tell us you're going to get a 3 or 4 hour nap, and then we got to go. So Alan just goes out like a stone. I, as best can describe, am just in like deity-like bliss. I can't read. I can't do anything but just sort of like, what just happened? What episode was that? What what season am I on right now? Where are the cameras? And 4 hours later, they kind of knock on our door. We got to go. And I'm sort of shaking Alan. And Alan's out. Alan is out. And Alan sort of wakes up in half in a daze, and he's like, no, just leave without me. I'll catch up. And so, like, what a ridiculous thing to say. And I get it, not all that ridiculous, but I get it. And so I decided to have a little bit of fun. I decided to be a little dramatic, because this is the moment. This is the moment to do it. And I go, Alan, we need to leave. It's not safe for you here. You're gonna die, Alan. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. I'm gonna die. I am going to die. It is 15 hours in to the flight back, Addis Ababa to DC. My legs have been bothering me the whole time. I'm prone to varicose veins. I'm gonna die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm not freaked out, not scared. As sure as the audience is in front of me, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna get DVT, like there's gonna be a blood clot, or we're gonna crash. As we're landing, I'm literally looking at the houses and the roofs and the pools and the bodies of water going, okay, so the plane's gonna break up, and I'm gonna try my best to sort of like hit that pool, but I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. I'm still processing this in front of you right now. I fell in love for the first time. I came out of the closet. I lost 100 pounds. I doubled my salary. I'm gonna die. I don't deserve any of this. Or now that I've got it, I can just go and be content. What else is there? To a gay kid, coming out is impossible. To a fat kid, being skinny is impossible. To a non-athlete, hiking Kilimanjaro these are all impossible things that I did, so I can go. I'm dead. I'm gonna die. And then I land. And I don't die. Spoiler. And I kind of remember like touching myself. And the funny part is, I did die. A lot of me's died. And I didn't know it, but I was about to march into the death of me idolizing my father. I was about to march into the death of that job that I thought I had. I was about to march into the death of my career as I knew it. I've died a lot since then. But it's okay. Because there was an adventure out there, and I summited it, and I'm a god. And so are you. Thank you.